My name is Juliet Dane. I'm 30 years old, a colonel in the United States Army, and tomorrow I'll be sitting across from my father and brother in a high-stakes defense contract meeting. They have no idea that I'm the Pentagon liaison with final approval authority. 5 years ago, I left this house without looking back. I was tired of being seen as the disappointment, the daughter who, in their eyes, threw away her future by choosing military service instead of business school. My father once told me the Army was for people without real options. That was the last real conversation we ever had. Tonight, I'm back home for a family dinner. My mother will talk about Logan's promotion. My father will nod proudly. And someone will ask if I'm still moving around a lot. I won't argue. I won't correct them. Because tomorrow, when their boss calls me Colonel Dane in front of a room full of executives, the silence will say everything. Let them have tonight. Tomorrow, everything changes. The driveway felt narrower than I remembered. My old car used to fit easily, but now my rented black SUV looked too sharp, too out of place next to my mother's aging minivan. I turned off the engine and sat quietly, letting the heater's hum fade. My hands were steady now. Military calm, they'd call it. But my stomach still churned the way it used to before deployment. The porch light was on, casting a warm yellow glow over the worn welcome mat and faded front door. Nothing had changed. Not the cracked steps, not the overgrown hedges, and certainly not the feeling waiting inside. That mix of being invisible and constantly judged at the same time. I rang the doorbell out of habit. "Juliet?" My mother called from the kitchen. She didn't come to the door. "It's open." Of course it was. I stepped inside. The same floral scent filled the air, the same wall of framed photos, my brother's graduation, his wedding, his 2 sons. There were no pictures of me in uniform, not even the commissioning portrait I sent 5 years ago. "Dinner's almost ready," my mother said without looking up as I walked into the kitchen. "Logan and Mariel are on their way. Logan just got another promotion. You won't believe it." I smiled politely. "That's great. Mom, you'll have to congratulate him. He's leading the entire systems integration team now. Everyone at your father's company says he's going places." That phrase, "going places," used to bother me. It always sounded like a train I had missed. Now, it was just background noise. The dining table was set for 6. There were no name cards, but the arrangement was obvious. Logan at the head, Dad on his right, Mom between them, and me somewhere less important. Logan and Mariel arrived right on time, as always. He wore the kind of blazer that says, "I'm important, but not trying too hard," and she brought a bottle of wine none of us would truly enjoy, though we'd all pretend to. "Hey, Jules," Logan said, giving me a brief hug, already glancing past me toward Dad. "Long time," I replied. 5 years. He blinked, unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. We ate roast beef, mashed potatoes, and the same salad Mom had been making since I was 10. Logan spoke confidently, going on about corporate restructures, performance bonuses, and his team's work on the company's military division. My father looked like he might tear up with pride. "And you?" Mom turned to me with a polite but distant smile. "Still traveling with the Army?" I took a sip of water. "More or less." "Still a captain?" Dad asked, not looking up from his plate. Something like that. "Must be tough, being in the field all the time," Logan added. "I mean, no long-term strategy, right? Just following orders." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My uniform was folded neatly in my suitcase upstairs, the Silver Eagle insignia catching light through the fabric. Tomorrow, they would understand exactly how much strategy I was responsible for. For now, I let them talk. It would be the last time they spoke over me. I spent most of the evening in my old room, sitting on the edge of a twin bed covered with the same patchwork quilt my grandmother made when I was 12. The walls were still filled with reminders of who they once believed I would be. Basketball trophies, honor roll certificates, college acceptance letters. Every achievement from before I joined ROTC. After that, I became a cautionary tale in this house. There were no framed articles about my cybersecurity awards, no photos from my deployments, no certificates marking my promotions to major, then lieutenant colonel. My greatest achievement, becoming a full colonel in the U.S. Army Cyber Command at 30, was completely invisible here. I remembered the day I told them about the ROTC scholarship. I expected hesitation. I didn't expect rejection. My father looked at me as if I had thrown my life away. "The military is for people without real potential," he had said. "You were meant for more." Of course, he meant his version of more: an MBA, a corner office, and ideally a role under his guidance at Westbridge Technologies, the same defense firm he had devoted his life to. It was always supposed to be Logan, and when Logan stepped into that role so naturally, the family story was complete. I wasn't the daughter who chose a different path. I was the daughter who wasted hers. Downstairs, I could hear laughter, Dad's deep chuckle, Mom's softer tone, Logan's confident voice. It sounded like a group gathered around their chosen successor. I had grown used to it, but now the irony felt almost poetic. Logan had just been promoted to lead the systems integration team on the very military contract I now oversaw. He didn't know. None of them did. Tomorrow at 900, I would walk into Westbridge Technologies in full uniform, brief the executive board as the Pentagon liaison for Project Sentinel, and assess the same technical strategy Logan had been describing at dinner. Back in my room, I opened my suitcase and took out the uniform. Midnight blue, perfectly pressed, with ribbons and medals aligned with precision. The colonel insignia reflected softly under the light. I checked for loose threads and polished the buttons with a cloth I always carried. My hands moved with routine discipline, more habit than emotion, because tomorrow was not about revenge. It was about precision, presence, and performance. It was about allowing them to see who I had become in a setting where I could not be interrupted or dismissed. The next morning, I arrived at Westbridge Technologies 15 minutes early. The parking lot was already filling with employees in business attire, moving quickly through security with lanyards and briefcases. I parked in the reserved space marked Military Liaison, DoD Authorized, stepped out in full uniform, and adjusted my collar. As I walked past the front checkpoint, people noticed. Some looked on, others straightened their posture, but no one questioned my presence. "Good morning, Colonel," the guard at the entrance said while scanning my badge. His tone was precise and respectful, the kind of acknowledgement I had never received at home. Inside, I bypassed the reception desk and took the elevator to the executive floor. I had studied the layout weeks in advance. There would be no surprises. When the doors opened, the first person I saw was Logan. He stood near the hallway window, reviewing a presentation on his tablet. His relaxed posture shifted the moment he saw me. "Juliet, why are you in?" "What is that?" he asked. I continued walking. "Good morning, Mr. Dane. I'm here for the project review." Behind him, my father's voice carried through the hallway as he approached, speaking with two men in navy suits. Then he saw me and stopped. "Juliet, what's going on? Why are you dressed like that?" he asked, clearly confused. His eyes moved between me and the others nearby, trying to understand the situation. It was becoming clear to him, though slowly, that something was different. Before I could respond, a tall woman with short white hair turned the corner. Lorraine Hart paused when she saw me, then smiled and walked forward, extending her hand. "Colonel Dane, I didn't realize you'd be attending in person. It's a pleasure." I shook her hand. I was nearby. I thought it would be beneficial to attend the briefing directly. "Absolutely. Your presence strengthens the room," she said with a light laugh. Then she turned to the group. "Everyone, for those who may not know, this is Colonel Juliet Dane, our Pentagon liaison for Project Sentinel. She holds final approval authority for all military integrations on this project." The hallway fell silent. I didn't look at my father or my brother. I didn't need to. Their reaction was clear without words. We entered the conference room together. My name was already placed on a card at the head of the table, next to Lorraine's. I took my seat, reviewed my notes, and waited. One by one, the team began to arrive: directors, engineers, and project leads. Each introduced themselves with a level of measured professionalism reserved for someone in authority, who could approve or delay millions in funding. Some were surprised by how young I was. Most were surprised that I was a woman. None questioned it after seeing the insignia. Logan and my father entered last. They sat farther down the table, quiet and reserved. The meeting began exactly at 0900. Lorraine opened the session, then handed it over to me. As we begin, I'd like to thank Colonel Dane for joining us in person. Her oversight has been invaluable, and her technical guidance has already improved key parts of our cyber protocol design. I stood, briefed the room on current milestones, and outlined the critical updates I expected before the next funding phase. I maintained eye contact, asked direct questions, and requested supporting documents where needed. Then it was Logan's turn. He stood slowly, clearly uneasy. As systems integration lead, I've been developing a new rollout strategy for Phase 2, he began, his voice slightly unsteady. I believe it aligns with our performance targets. I let him finish, then responded. Mr. Dane, I said in a calm, professional tone, could you explain how your approach accounts for the latency thresholds outlined in our last Pentagon memo? He paused. I can revisit that section. You will need to. Our benchmarks are not flexible. Please revise the protocol draft and submit it by close of business Thursday. He nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. The room fell quiet for a moment, then the discussion moved forward. I led the next agenda item as if nothing had happened, though the shift in the room was clear. The meeting concluded shortly after noon. Lorraine closed with remarks on transparency and collaboration, then added, Colonel Dane will remain on site through tomorrow for follow-up assessments. Please ensure she has full access and support. This project is critical to both national security and our future partnerships. As people began to leave, I noticed the way they looked at me had changed. Not curiosity, but recognition. My role was no longer unclear. I had earned my place, and they understood it. My father waited in the hallway outside the conference room. Juliet, he said once we were alone, still trying to maintain authority. We need to talk. I nodded. Your office. He hesitated, then led the way. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. My mother sat in a chair, rigid. Logan stood by the window, arms crossed. The three of them together felt familiar, like a panel from my past. I remained standing, composed, hands behind my back. How long have you been a colonel? My father asked. 6 months. 6 months, he repeated. And you didn't tell us? I did, I replied. I sent invitations to the promotion ceremony, emails, articles. I left voicemails. None of you responded. He started to speak, but my mother interrupted. We didn't understand what it meant. Colonel sounds important, but we didn't really know. Why didn't you explain? Because I stopped trying to prove my worth, I said. Every time I called, the conversation shifted to Logan's work or your business results. You didn't ask about me unless it was to suggest I leave the Army and come home. We thought you were stuck, Logan said. Moving from base to base, not really progressing. I looked at him. Last night, you said people in the military just follow orders. You laughed. He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know you were doing this. You didn't ask, I replied. My mother reached for her purse, then paused. Juliet, I don't know what to say. We should have been there. For your commissioning, your graduation, everything. I thought you were distancing yourself. No, I said. I just stopped expecting you to show up. The silence that followed was heavy, but necessary. My father cleared his throat. So what do you want now? Public recognition? An apology? A feature in the company newsletter? I shook my head. I want what I've always deserved, respect for my work, my decisions, and the fact that I didn't fail just because I didn't follow your plan. Logan stepped away from the window. You reviewed my presentation today, and you were fair, he said quietly. You didn't try to embarrass me. I wasn't there to, I replied. I was doing my job. He nodded. It was impressive. You were commanding. It was the first sincere compliment I had heard from him. My father stood, still keeping his distance. You've built something we didn't understand, he said. That's on us. We thought we knew better. We didn't. For the first time, there was uncertainty in his voice. Not defeat, but a shift. He extended his hand, not for appearance, but with genuine intent. Colonel Dane, he said, his voice unsteady. I owe you an apology. I underestimated you. I shook his hand. Firm, steady, no resentment, just closure. I accept. My mother stood next. We'd like to try again if you're willing. One step at a time, I said. And for the first time in years, I believed that was possible. 6 months later, my apartment in Washington, D.C. was quiet but complete. The open living space overlooked the city, a clean skyline beyond the windows. My bookshelf held a mix of cybersecurity texts and a few framed commendations with medals placed neatly between them. Nothing excessive, just enough. That evening, my family came over for dinner. My father arrived first, holding a framed article. Thought you might want a copy, he said. It was a feature from a defense journal covering the success of Project Sentinel. My photo was centered, standing in full dress uniform beside General Armstrong and Lorraine Hart. "I've had this in my office for a while," he added, avoiding direct eye contact. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "It means something." My mother arrived shortly after, carrying a warm pie. "Apple," she said with a small smile. "Still your favorite?" "It is." She looked around the apartment. "Everything is so organized. I don't know how you manage it." I almost joked, military habit, but decided not to. She was making an effort. That was enough. Logan and his wife arrived last, bringing an expensive bottle of wine and a more relaxed attitude than I expected. After dinner, while dishes settled in the sink and conversation softened, Logan pulled me aside. "I used the rollout structure you suggested," he said. "The team didn't like it at first, but it works better than what we had." "Did you tell them where it came from?" He smiled slightly. "Eventually, after letting them think I came up with it for a few minutes." I nodded. "As long as it works." "It does," he said. "And so do you. You've really built something. I don't think I ever said that before." "No," I replied. "You didn't." "Well, I am now." Across the room, my father was looking at the medals on the shelf. His attention paused on one in particular, the cyber defense citation for stopping a foreign breach that nearly disrupted 2 federal networks. "I read about this one," he said quietly. "I didn't realize you were leading it." I was. He didn't say anything else. He just nodded. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a perfect ending. But it was real, and that mattered more. Later that evening, over coffee and pie, my father raised his glass. "To Colonel Juliet Dane," he said, "who proved that worth isn't defined by following someone else's path, but by building your own." We all raised our glasses. I looked around the room and saw something I had never seen growing up. Recognition. Not tolerance. Not polite acknowledgement. Real respect. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. The victory wasn't in them finally recognizing me. It was in knowing that even if they hadn't, I would have kept moving forward. I used to think I needed their approval, that one day if I worked hard enough, they would see me. But the truth is, I didn't need their validation to be real. I already was. Walking into that boardroom in uniform wasn't about revenge. It was clarity. I didn't need to explain who I was. My presence did that. They once believed I was wasting my potential, that I wouldn't become anything significant. Yet there I was, leading the very project they had built their careers around. That moment didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the past. But it did something more important. It proved I never needed to follow their path to create value. So if someone underestimates you, let them. Keep building. Keep improving. And when the moment comes, show up prepared and composed. Because the strongest proof isn't what you say, it's who you become.